Sis, we're back again. It's amazing. Maybe you're watching these all in a row because you're like, oh, I actually need to watch them to understand what's going on in class. Yay! Do that. Okay, watch them. So we had been talking about nutrient cycles. Now we're going to talk about something else interesting. We're going to talk about energy and how energy moves through the ecosystem. So we talked about the nutrient cycles, water, carbon, nitrogen cycles. We're talking about matter. Okay, any atom or element or molecule, that's matter. That's something that you can touch and hold on to. It has mass and takes up space. That's matter. Okay, you're made of matter. You matter. Okay, so all that is matter. So those nutrient cycles talk about how matter, how stuff moves through an ecosystem or moves through Earth. Well, right now we're going to look at something else. We're going to talk about how energy moves through the ecosystem. And matter and energy are not really the same thing. Energy is something like heat or light. Okay, you can't hold on to energy. Like I can't give you a jar with some light in it because it's not matter. Okay, so it's something else. Okay, it's energy. So how does energy move through the ecosystem? Where does energy come from? Well, that's where we talk about the food chain. Don't you love food chains? I do. I think they're cute. And all that energy, originally, I know I'm here, I guess, instead of the bird, even though I don't eat worms. Okay. Where does that energy originally come from? Okay, well, here's you, and here's your food, and here's your food's food. Where did the original food, like maybe you eat salad, where did that food get its energy from? The sun. That's right. If you were thinking you're saying that, you're smart. And if you didn't know that, now you're smarter because you know. So all the energy that we get originally came from the sun. How cool is that? I love the sun. So sunlight energy is transformed, that means changed, and is turned by plants into food. Okay, so they use energy from the sun to take carbon dioxide, carbon cycle, and water cycle. And look how those two cycles connect right there. They take those two molecules, use energy from the sun to change it into food. And food is stored chemical energy. So you can think of food like a molecule, and when you break bonds in a molecule, that makes energy. So food and sugar is matter, but when you digest them and break the bonds in the food, that produces energy. And we turn that energy into movement or heat, okay, and to keep our body going. Okay, so energy is transferred through the food chain. Cool. A point I'd like to make, and I'm pretty sure I have it later, is as you go up the food chain, less and less and less energy is transmitted through each step of the food chain. Let me see if I have that on the next slide. Nope. I'll get to it. Don't worry. It's in there. And if it's not, I won't forget. So what is a food chain? A food chain is a simple diagram. It shows what eats what and kind of can give you an idea of the energy transfer from one level to the next. Each level is called a trophic level. So here's the first trophic level, and then behind me is a bug. I guess I'm the bug today. And then you have your bug is your primary consumer. Then you have your secondary, tertiary, and quaternary consumer. So secondary, tertiary, quaternary consumers. The guy at the top here is also sometimes known as the apex predator, like Randy Orton, or the top carnivore. Okay, so we call these producers, we could call them producers or autotrophs. It's a plant. And then anything that eats, so the bug that's behind me, the bird, snake, and owl, they are heterotrophs. And depending on what they eat, there are different kinds of heterotrophs. So if they eat plants, they're called an herbivore. If they eat meat, they're called a carnivore. Okay. So usually, especially younger kids, want to add and add and add and add and add onto the food chain until there's this super, super, super long chain. We don't usually see that. There's always usually something at the top, like this apex predator here. And they also usually eat a variety of things, like this owl can eat a snake, could also eat this bird, could eat a mouse. So a food chain is sort of just like, okay, if we traced back all the food that this one creature ate, where did it come from? But we have another diagram that kind of shows like all the connections. Well, what's a food chain good for then? Well, we can kind of look at it and use it to see how much energy is moving from one level to the next. If we want to show all the connections, we call that a food web. So I know I'm blocking this here, sorry. My head's in the way. Actually, let me try to help us all out here. Oh yeah, look at that. Perfect. Hooray, I love technology today. All right, so here in this desert food web, you can see here we have some grass, and you can see all the things that eat the grass. This is an important note about food chains and food webs. The arrow always points from what is getting eaten to the eater. So the arrow points to the guy doing the eating. And so the rabbit's not eating the snake. The snake eats the rabbit. So that's why the arrow points to the snake. So who goes in here? Okay, so that's why the arrows point the way they are. So what's a food web then? Well, remember, like in nature, things aren't just simple. It's not just a food chain. It's not like the rat always eats the star cactus, and then it's always eaten by a snake, and then the snake always dies and is eaten by nothing. It's not always like that. There's lots of different intricate connections, and this is just one really small localized area that still doesn't show all the connections in this biome that could be there. So it's kind of gives you a look at the interconnectedness of everything, which is really important. That's what we've been talking about a lot in ecology. It's just been like, okay, well, everything is connected. Here are how biotic and abiotic factors are connected. Here's how you're connected to non-living things like water. Now we can see here is one way all the living things are connected. It shows about who is eating what. It doesn't show like symbiotic relationships necessarily. Okay, but this shows how they interact with each other as predator and prey. And then look, I love this diagram because it shows everything ends up going to the bacteria and decomposers. And the decomposers will change them and then break them back down, and their nutrients, all those molecules and the essential elements, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, so on, they all get sent back into the soil and can be taken up by plant life again. So that's why I really like this diagram, because it includes the decomposers on there, and I think that's a very important piece to have. So now we can talk about this energy pyramid. I want to move this up a little bit too, so you can sort of see. There, now we'll pretend like that never happened. Okay, do you guys like my pin today? It's a muffin. It's a muffin time. Okay, who wants a muffin? It's muffin time. Just in case, I gotta make sure you're watching it. So what is this energy pyramid? Here it is. It's another way, sort of, to diagram a food chain or a food web. And it shows the amount of energy at each level. You can also use this to determine the biomass at each level. What's biomass? If I could take all the primary producers, like all the plants in like the little forest, and weigh them, okay, that's the biomass. Okay, so it also shows, and think about this, what is there more of in an ecosystem, snakes or plants? Plants. Okay, so hopefully that helps you kind of put things together. In a food chain, in a food web, in an ecosystem, we have the most primary producers, and we have the least top carnivores. Why? Okay, why is there more biomass at the bottom and the top? Why are there more individuals at the bottom than the top? It has to do with this energy pyramid. Okay, so let's say this is 100% of the energy. This is where the energy starts that we can use it. Like I can't sit there and eat sunlight. I wouldn't mind. but we can't. We also can't just photosynthesize. And I would not at all mind being green if I could photosynthesize. Green is the best color. So let's say we have 100% of the energy down here. It's on here, but do you know how much gets passed on to the next level? Only 10%. 90% of the energy that these plants make is lost. How? They use it. They use it to grow, to make fruit, to make pollen, to make flowers. Other animals lose it as heat. They could just die, and like that energy is lost and doesn't get eaten by anybody. It goes back into the soil. So only 10% goes up to this level. Okay, well then we've got herbivores like bugs and squirrels and stuff. And then other animals eat them. Okay, well how much energy goes up from this level to this? Only 10%. So as we go up, if this is 100, this level has 10% of the original energy. That means this level has only 1% of this original energy. That means once you get up to here, it has 0.1% of the original energy. So there's just not enough energy to support more animals living at this higher level. Okay, that's why people probably encourage others to go on to like a vegan diet. I love animals. I really do. I'm also totally okay with eating animals, especially if they're treated ethically and so on, so on, so on. But, so that being said, I'm not being like, well, you have to eat just vegetables. We need a balance. We're human beings. We need to eat vegetables and meat and fruit and so on. But if you had like, this much of a steak, doesn't it sound good? Like, let's just say like a pound of steak. Anyway, I've already had lunch. I'm good. And you had that much, a pound of black beans. Did you know you actually get more protein and more energy from that pound of black beans than the steak? Why? Those black beans are down here, where the cow that the steak came from is up here. So the cow has less energy in it, sort of, not really, but like there's less available energy at this next level than there is in this level. So that's why food chains and food webs are limited in the amount. That's why people might encourage other people. Well, one reason why people might encourage others to be vegetarian or vegan, because you're using up more energy and more resources when you eat an herbivore, a primary consumer. So if we were in class, we would do this. You can do this for fun. You can make a lovely food chain. I had everyone in class then secretly who picked the same biome, or if I assigned them the same biome, we put them all together and made a big food web, and it was fun. But you can totally make a food chain and a food web for fun. I know you're like, that's not fun. It's fun to draw. All right, well, I hope that helps you understand a little bit about food chains, food webs, and energy pyramids, including the energy transfer from each trophic level. Practice these words, use them. Tell your parents, I'll be like, oh, I learned about trophic levels today in class, and they're going to be like, my child is a genius. Try it. Just try it. Okay, well, I hope it helped you, and I will see you soon.